The secrets are out. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the changing woman, triple goddess, and why we are where we are today. Hey, welcome back. My name is Celia and I'm your host, and I just want to thank you for being here. I also want to thank you for all of the new subscribers that have joined me on this journey. I want you to know that this is not taken lightly. I really appreciate you being here and listening to things that I channel, as well as because I'm a pattern seer, I put pieces together. So I want you to know that what I'm about to share with you today is going to seem a little out there, but if you've been on this journey and you are interested in the stars, in astrology, then this is going to make perfect sense. At least I hope it's going to make perfect sense for you or to you, because it's been an emotional few days for me, and really collecting myself, and with everything that's happening in the world as it unfolds, it leaves you contemplating why. And that's where my curiosity started unfolding what it all means. So I'm going to begin this with, I did write a blog breaking this apart, like really looking at the patterns. And so if you are a reader, I would recommend that you go over to celiasasser.com where my blog is. I'll put the link down below in the description box. But I do recommend that you take a look at that, because I really break it down in sequence to what I've been going through and why I'm on the journey that I'm on. I didn't choose this for myself. I know that it's part of my ancestral lineage, and why I'm here and why I do the things that I do. I didn't know at first, but when you receive the calling and you answer it, it might not make sense in the beginning, but all of the pieces are coming together for me right now. And we're all going through a massive awakening because things are being exposed right now. And if you watched my last episode where I was talking about the 12th house and secrets, that's the microcosm of what is happening right now. But then we have the macrocosm. So we have to see what is exposing itself in our reality, as well as what it triggers within. And so right now we have Mercury and Venus in Pisces. And so Pisces is the ruler of the 12th house, if you want to call it the ruler, or more like the zodiac sign that is in that place. But Pisces is where secrets are held. And so now we have Mercury, who's the messenger, and we have Venus, who is the feminine, the goddess, the essence of the divine feminine. And so all of these things are being exposed right now that has to do with the harm of children and women. And we have to look, like, where did this all happen? Where did it come from? Why is it happening? And so with the messenger, which is Mercury, which is the normal ruler of Gemini, which is curiosity. I don't recommend going down the rabbit hole if you don't want images impressed on your mind. I, for one, can't. But I just know, like, I have an inner knowing. I've always followed this. I've known this has been going on just by an inner knowing and looking at patterns, channeling messages, and seeing what's unfolding. And what I can tell you right now, that what is unfolding is even more explosive than what has already been exposed. But know that it has to come to light so that we can wake up completely from this illusion. So, Pisces, with having Venus and Mercury moving into Pisces, this is the time for us to find the wounded Venusian energy, because she is the feminine, right? And the curiosity of where the secrets lie. Now, Pisces rules religion. So we were in the Piscean age, which is all about being bamboozled. And we also have Neptune moved into Aries. So Neptune is waking us up from the illusion, because Aries is all about your first impression. It's a new energy. It is a new beginning. It is the first sign in the zodiac, where it's a rebirth. And now with Neptune in Aries, it's like saying, wake up from the illusion. I'm going to tell you how it all began. And I've been receiving downloads, and I've been putting the pieces together. And so in this episode, I hope to help you make sense of why it happens, where it all got out of balance, and how can we change it, right? Because the age of Aquarius it's a new age. And this isn't coming from New Age spirituality, because I don't follow any religion. I just want you to know that I just follow my inner knowing, and I just connect to what feels right, and I pay attention to where my spirit is guiding me. And that's why I've been on this journey. Um, and I want to share my journey with you so it kind of makes sense. And like I said, if you want to read it, you can read it. I'm going to also have it on my podcast. So if you want to listen while you're, double tasking, multitasking, then you have that option as well. But I do recommend that you just find a quiet corner, grab a drink, preferably non-alcoholic, because you need a clear mind, and just allow yourself to have an open mind. Now, if you have purchased a copy of my book, you will remember that in my book I said at the beginning of this journey that I wanted to inspire women and help them find their magic. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I surrendered and allowed it to unfold. So at that moment, I started going inwards, and I started journaling, meditating, exercising, and really just connecting with my guides and being more in the spirit than in the physical to find answers. I know my demeanor probably seems a little bit more quieter. My last video, I was pretty fired up because that was when everything was coming out, and it triggered something within, and just gave me like this fiery energy waking up inside. And right now I can say that I strongly feel this in my sacral. I don't know if you're feeling this, if you feel like tension or tingling or just like this flame burning inside, know that the spirit of your womb is waking up because of everything that is happening. So when I'm talking about the changing woman and the triple goddess, uh, as the women who carry the womb, we go through this cycle, and it's been forgotten. So I really want to explain where it happened, why it happened, and my journey. So as I was meditating and going within and on the journey of self-discovery. During a meditation, I saw an orange flame. And the orange flame presented itself as Goddess Ishtar. Now, mind you, I just had an interior design business. I've never been down this path of spirituality, working with the goddess, any of it. This was all foreign to me. And so I didn't really think about it because I didn't know who Goddess Ishtar was, but I knew that I had closed the door of my interior design business because I was just feeling burnt out creatively, and also spiritually. And so I thought maybe that's why I saw the orange flame, because the orange flame is connected, the color orange is connected with your sacral. And your sacral is found below the belly button, and it is where your womb is. It's where not only that you literally give birth to children, but it is the way that you birth creativity. And so that's what I thought the symbolism of the orange flame was about. And then I would have a dream. Few dreams. The synchronicities started happening for me. Now, this was in 2013, right before my 50th birthday, okay? And one thing I want to be clear is that as an Aquarius rising, I've always kind of did my own thing. I didn't conform to religion or the corporate, or I wasn't tapped into that world. So I guess maybe that made me a candidate to be the messenger of everything that I'm sharing with you. And so one of the dreams I had was that as I was sleeping, the 8-pointed star was hovering over my womb, my uterus. And as the 8-pointed star hovered, I heard a whisper saying, "Remember who you are. Remember who you are." And when I woke up, I had no idea what that meant. But, I just remembered that voice. And then I had another dream. And I was in an OBGYN office, a doctor's office, in the waiting room. And I kept hearing, "Stella, Stella." And then I went into different rooms in this OBGYN office, and I saw posters with bright red cursive letters written out as Stella. So everywhere I looked, I saw Stella. I could hear Stella. Now, I was thinking this was a person that I needed to research. And then my son, I was telling him about the dream, and my son said, "Mom, you do know that Stella means star." I was like, "Oh, here we go again with the star." And so, all of these synchronicities kept happening. Like even today, I knew that I was going to be filming. And as I was driving, there was a truck that said Star Transportation. There was a star. And I just had to laugh because I was like, okay, universe, Goddess Ishtar, I hear you loud and clear. So then after having those dreams and seeing all the symbols, I was like, there's just a synchronicity happening with stars. And what does this mean? I couldn't put the pieces together. So I met this woman online, and we had messaged privately, and I was telling her about the synchronicities that I was having about stars, and I didn't know what it meant. It was like everywhere I went, there was, whether it was on a van or a truck or a street name is Starte, or I was being bombarded with stars. And then she tells me, "That's funny that you would say that because I just got a tattoo on my wrist of a star." And she sent me a picture of it. And my mind was just blown because I was like, okay, I need to figure out what this star is. So circling back to Goddess Ishtar, I didn't know that she represented the 8-pointed star. And the 8-pointed star is like the compass, right? It's a north, south, east, west, north, east, northwest. It's 8, right? It's the 8-pointed star. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, there's something about the stars. During that time, I was working with the moon, and I thought, okay, I'm supposed to learn astrology. This is what the goddess wants me. Goddess Ishtar, she's the 8-pointed star. But before I worked on astrology, started leaning that way, I started using tarot. And in tarot, I discovered that there's the major arcana card, number 17, which is the star card, which is Aquarius, because I found out that I was an Aquarius rising. Because remember, I didn't know any of this stuff. I found out that I was an Aquarius rising, and that the star card in the major arcana is ruled by Aquarius. And guess, yes, it's the 8-pointed star. And the 17, when you put it to, one number, it's an 8, which is the divine feminine number representing the 8-pointed star. And then I was having dreams about babies, pregnancy, people I know being pregnant, children. Even the dream about Stella, it was in an OBGYN, which is symbolism for a rebirth. I hadn't connected the dots yet. And, what the symbolism was trying to show me is that I was going through a rebirth. I was remembering the divine feminine within, and taking me back to that we're all stars, and we're made from stardust. The galaxy lives within. And so here's something that I didn't know, because like I said, I wasn't studying astrology. But what I learned, and what you should consider, is that in 2013, I was 1 year away from turning 50. And in your natal chart, you have something called Chiron. And Chiron is an asteroid, but it is the wounded warrior. And so when you turn 50, it returns back to the same spot that you have it in your chart. And this is your opportunity to heal this wound, because it's a karmic wound that you brought into this lifetime. And so it's your opportunity to find the medicine, to heal the wound so that you can become the medicine. Even when you think of shamanism, because I was getting downloads around me being a shaman, and I was just like, what? Like, this is just like way above who I am. I'm just me. But a shaman is somebody who is a wound healer. But the only way that you can be the wound healer is to go through your own journey and heal the wound that you brought in. And so you're going to want to take a look, because that's a belief that you're carrying about yourself that is blocking you and building your paradigm. And it's been building your paradigm all of this time. And so 50 is like the return for you to finally find the medicine. So, remember me sharing how, like I said to the universe, I want to help women find their magic. I didn't know what that looked like. It was me saying to the universe that I was ready to go through the initiation and become the medicine. And that's what I was doing all of this time. So from 2013 up until now, I have been going through it, and I've been recording my process. So everything that I've channeled during this process, I've created something for it. So I was also creating a structure and a system that worked for me. And it wasn't getting out there. Like, I kept saying, I'm being obedient. I'm creating the things. I'm showing up, making myself visible. My videos aren't being seen. Why am I doing all of this if I'm supposed to remain visible? But it was the universe saying that it wasn't time, because I was still finding the medicine. I still needed to put the pieces together. And so the reason why the goddess appeared was Goddess Ishtar was guiding me through my transformation. So in 2023, like this journey is not for the faint at heart, because if you're impatient and you want results and you think you're chasing something else, like me, I thought I was leaving one business as an interior designer and moving into another business as a life coach, which was really never what it was about, but that's what I thought it was. And then in 2023, I had my second Saturn return. So if you know anything about Saturn, Saturn is the system builder, the structure builder. Saturn rules Capricorn, the 10th house. And the 10th house is all about these systems. And because Saturn is the masculine, it's why we're dealing with this patriarchal system. We'll get into that later in this episode, but just trying to help you see the pieces unfold as they're coming to me. And so guess where? You probably know where if you've watched any of my videos. I have Saturn and Chiron together in the second house in Pisces for me, because I'm in Aquarius rising. And the second house is your material world. So it's the systems, the matrix in the material world. And I had this wound around not feeling worthy, because Chiron is about self-worth. Second house is self-worth. With money, the attachment of money and my worth. And so I had to do the healing and go back to where the bond broke with my mother. And it was always around money. So that's something I had to heal within so that I could integrate and become whole again. So this journey has just been wild for me. And it's taken me through a lot of things that I didn't know about. And one of those things is I really didn't know anything about the patriarchal system. And the patriarchal system has built this illusion, right? Because Pisces is in my second house, and Pisces is ruled by Neptune, which is illusion. And we are moving from the Piscean age of illusion into Aquarius, which is about being a sovereign being a free thinker, being a nonconformist, waking up from the system. And one of the things that I really had to work through is this belief about aging, because in the patriarchal system, when you reach a certain age, you are like disposable, like you have no value. And the wise woman has been erased, going back to the changing woman or the triple goddess. And so I was going through this initiation so that I could remember, because Pisces is inwards. My initiation was spiritual, and I needed to put the pieces together to why I was abandoning myself. And so it came through as the symbology of a star. And I needed to know what the star is. Now, even when you think about stars, where you see them in different patriarchal systems. Now, I just want you to know this, that the patriarchal system is not like focused on male bashing. The patriarchal system, even though it is predominantly male, there are women in the patriarchal system, but it's a hierarchical system. It is the system of the Father God, and everything falls underneath the Father God, where the mother, the sacred mother, was replaced. So just put a pin in that right now. I didn't know anything about that. So that was the biggest thing, is I needed to remember these systems, these false systems that have been, and this was in 2013. Even in 2018, I knew everything was going to collapse. I knew that when Pluto moved into Aquarius, It wasn't because I studied astrology, it was an inner knowing. It was a channel that I received that all of these constructs were going to fall because it's the patriarchal system. So that's why you're seeing religion being exposed, the entertainment industry, anything that was under the illusion of the patriarchal symbol, which is a 5-pointed star. So when you think of the states, okay, the United States has the 50 stars and they're 5-pointed stars. Think of Hollywood, the Walk of Fame, 5-pointed stars. Anything with the 5-pointed star, we'll get into that, just put a pin in that, but there is a connection with it. So one of these systems that I needed to break was the belief that my identity was attached to my earning because of the material world. We all have this programming that you don't have value unless you have money, but it was set up that way. So now that you're caught up on like my journey, what I went through, like some of the little, not little, big for me, the synchronistic things that happened to get me to where I am right now, I want to dive into the symbology of the star because it happened to be the most prominent thing that was taking me on this journey. And so I started asking the questions. I was doing research and really looking at the symbology of the star, and particularly the 5-pointed star. And what this symbology, why it's so important, because it is responsible. It's like the subliminal programming that has removed the woman, the womb, the matriarch, the sacred mother. So when I started asking about, the shape of the star, I was doing research. And the one thing that you probably don't know is that a star is, maybe you do know, a star is a orb. It's a glowing orb. It's spherical. Stars that we see in our physical reality are pointed stars. And I wanted to know where the two triangles overlapping to create the 5-pointed star, where did it come from? Why did we remove the orb as the star, the glowing star, and replace it with the 5-pointed star? And so the 5-pointed star is known as a hexagram or the Star of David. But the origins of the symbol, they're not rooted in astronomy. They are, but rather they're rooted in geometry, sacred geometry, religion, and cultural history. So one of the things that I learned about the two triangle overlapping 5-pointed star hexagram Star of David was used in our 6-pointed star. Let me back up. 6-pointed. The hexagram is a 6-pointed star. The 5-pointed star is what you see in the state and the in like the Hollywood star. It's the 5-pointed star, but the 6-pointed star is the overlapping triangles. And so in Hinduism and Buddhism, the 6-pointed star represents the union of the masculine with the upward triangle and the feminine with the downward triangle. And the union of the spirit and matter. Okay, so the spirit is the up-facing triangle, and then the matter is pointing down. And then in Western occultism and alchemy, the upward triangle represents fire, and the downward triangle represents water. And the combining of them both symbolizes the great work, the harmony of opposites. And then while you're looking at the hexagram, in ancient Jewish art, it's in the carvings of the synagogues. but it wasn't exclusive. It wasn't an exclusive symbol for Judaism for a very long time. The seal of Solomon, which is a six-pointed star, was believed to have been used in the Middle Ages as a signet ring used by King Solomon to control demons and spirits. And then in the 17th century Prague, the Jewish community began using the Star of David as an official community symbol and eventually spread across Europe as a counterpart to the Christian cross. All of this is going to make sense as I go further. You might be wondering, why are we talking about this? This is about symbolism. I was doing my research. Why the eight-pointed star? Why the six-pointed star? What is the symbolism behind it? And the five-pointed star. I'm not really going to go in depth about the five-pointed star, other than the five-pointed star is the patriarchal stamp of illusion. Okay. So if stars are spheres, then why do we use the specific geometry of the star? So if you look at it through a sociological, and psychological perspective, many scholars of symbolic anthropology and archetypal psychology, like Carl Jung, have observed the distinction between the pointed star and the circle orb. Because remember, a real star is an orb, and everything in our solar system is an orb. And what they were looking at was how it often mirrors the traditional symbolic divide between the masculine, patriarchal, and feminine, matriarchal energies because of the shape. The star, specifically the version made of two triangles, is often associated with traits traditionally categorized as masculine or patriarchal. The points of the star radiate outward, directional power, and in many cultures, the triangle represents the phallus, fire, and the drive to ascend and conquer. A star is a complex geometric construction. It requires straight lines and sharp angles, symbolizing logic, law, and the cutting nature of intellect. Stars are often used in a hierarchy to denote rank, with the top point of the star suggesting the peak or the head of the hierarchy. It represents the attainable distant goal, the guiding light that is watching over the world for a position of authority. But the circle orb is a symbol of the feminine, the mother, the matriarchal systems, the womb. The orb is shaped like an egg, the belly, and the breast. It represents containment, protection, and the Great Mother. Unlike the star, a circle has no top or bottom, no sharp points. Every point of the circumference is equal distance from the center. This reflects a horizontal or communal social structure rather than a vertical hierarchy. Circles are matriarchal symbolism and tied to the moon, which is an orb, and its phases, going back to the triple goddess and the changing woman. It represents the cyclical nature of life, death and rebirth, rather than the linear progress represented by a pointed star. One of the things that I just want to touch base with is that when I heard the calling, the first thing that I was drawn to is to work with the moon and the phases in manifesting, and how the moon, because remember, it's been removed from the natural way of women. Because if you go back to even like indigenous tribes, they've always used the moon, the 13 calendar moon, for fertility. And women connect, their menses connect with the 13 moons, the cycles. And so because I didn't know this information, that's where Goddess Ishtar wanted me first to reconnect back to the feminine, the womb. So that was my first initiation. Okay, so in alchemy and psychology, the circle, our mandala, represents the self, a state where all parts are integrated rather than divided. And historically, as many cultures transitioned from earth-based matriarchal worship, which was about the seasons and the earth, to the sky-based patriarchal religion, which was the star or the sun or the heavens, the iconography shifted. So we changed the symbolism from the matriarch, the orb, to the star, which is patriarchal. Now we're moving into something different. So while the six-pointed star leans toward sharp patriarchy geometry, the eight-pointed star, known as the octagram or the star of Ishtar, is one of the oldest feminine symbols in human history. That's why she presented herself to me as the eight-pointed star. The reason this specific star is feminine is not about geometry, but the astronomical behavior of the planet Venus, because the eight-pointed star is connected with the planet Venus. So let's just talk about the rose of Venus, the orbital pattern. The most profound reason the eight-pointed stars link to the feminine is the 8-year cycle of planet Venus. And from our perspective on Earth, Venus completes a cycle every 8 years, where it returns to the same spot in the sky. If you track the position of Venus relative to the Earth, it traces a near perfect 5-petal rose. That's why she's referred to as the rose in the sky. And because of the 8 to 5 point ratio, Earth, 8 years of Earth, 5 cycles of Venus, the number 8 becomes sacred number of the goddess of love. So the divine feminine number is 8. Now remember, I didn't know any of this. It was just what I was being guided to because I was presented with the 8-pointed star. Also, Mary Magdalene came in as one of the goddesses I work with too. And I'm not a religious person. So I just want you to know I wasn't following religion. I was following an inner knowing, being guided. And this was all part of me healing my wound. So in ancient Mesopotamia, the 8-pointed star was the primary symbol for Inanna, which later known as Ishtar, the queen of heaven. So here's a fun fact that I didn't know as well, is that my name, Celia, means heavenly. So I'm just like connecting the dots here, you guys. And that reminds me of a dream I had. So one night I was dreaming about, like, I was on the path of the emerald tablet that they wanted me to learn about. I was guided to physics, like the whole thing. And during this dream, and the Anunnaki, okay, and during this dream, I dreamt that the sky opened up, and what I saw when the sky opened up was like thousands and thousands of spaceships. And in one of the spaceships, there was a couple, beautiful, dark-skinned couple. They were giants, and they were dressed in Egyptian garb with the headpiece and the collar gold necklace. And just think of when you think of Egyptian sun gods, that's how they were dressed. It was a male and female. And they reassured me that they said the Anunnaki are here. That was one of my dreams. Later, I found out that Goddess Ishtar is an Anunnaki. And something else I found out was that astrology was learned in like 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. So all of these pieces was like just a freaking wild ride that I was going on. So Venus is both the morning star and the evening star. And the 8 points represent the goddess's ability to govern both light and dark, war and love, life and death. And the compass represents the 8 directions, symbolizing the goddess's omnipresence and her role as the center of the world. In terms of pure shape, sacred geometry, the 8-pointed star is the bridge between the square, the earth and material, and the circle, the heaven and spirit. It is often depicted as a flower, like a rosette, blending the pointed nature of the star with an organic nature of a blooming plant. Even as the patriarchal systems took over, the 8-pointed star remained as a symbol of the divine feminine. In Christian iconography, the Virgin Mary is often called the Star of the Sea, Stella Maris. Remember that dream I had about Stella, Stella, Stella? And is frequently depicted wearing an 8-pointed star on her cloak, inheriting the symbol from Ishtar or Venus. Gnosticism, it represents the Sophia wisdom, the feminine aspect of the divine. So remember my dream about the 8-pointed star hovering over my uterus. I really wanted to dive deep, like where, why was this symbology? What was it trying to get me, other than to wake up and remember how powerful all women are because we have the womb, but I wanted to find out more. So here's the connection that I found. The 8-pointed star and the uterus are found at the intersection of biological rhythms, ancient sacred geometry, and the life giver. Archetypes of early civilizations, while the star looks sharp to the modern eye, to the ancient mind, it was the map of fertility and the internal timing of the female body. In ancient cultures like the Maya or the Sumerians, they followed the 13 moon cycles for fertility. That was their calendar. In ancient carvings, the star of Ishtar, Inanna, was a rosette, a blooming flower. And in biological mimicry, the cervix is often described as a rosette-like appearance from the front. Ancient priestesses viewed the 8-pointed star as the gate through which life enters the world. Just as the star represents the morning star, birth, emergence, the uterus is the physical state of that emergence. The 8-pointed star was used as a talisman for regeneration. In the Sumerian descent of Inanna myths, the goddess dies and is reborn, mirroring the shedding of the uterine lining and the potential for new life. I'll share more of how it correlates with menopause later in this video. Telling you, it's been a wild ride, and I've been putting these pieces together, and I'm amazed at everything. And in this blog post, I purposely titled it Save the Children because of everything that's happening. So we're going to get into how this has anything to do with saving the children. Okay, so as societies became more patriarchal, the soft flower-like star became sharp, dagger-like points. This shifted the meaning from fruitfulness of the womb to the power of the crown. Just think of everything that's being exposed right now, having to do with the crown, okay? The shift from the matriarchal orb rosette symbolism to patriarchal pointed hierarchical symbolism wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate social and political restructuring that took place over thousands of years. As private property and land ownership became central to civilization, men wanted to pass their wealth to their biological sons. And to ensure paternity, women's bodies had to be controlled. The orb, representing the autonomous self-contained womb, was brought under the protection and authority of the star, the male head of the household. The Great Sky God Revolution. Early religions were earth-based, focusing on soil and the moon, but it was hijacked as nomadic warring tribes, the Indo-Europeans, moved in to settled areas, and they brought a solar or sky gods. These gods lived in the high peaks of the mountains and in the distant cold stars. The earth was redefined as passive or matter, from the Latin mater, meaning mother, while the sky was redefined as an active or spirit. This created a hierarchy. The spirit became male, and the mother, and above matter, the sky god, above matter, which is female. One of the most effective ways the patriarchy disguised the feminine was by placing her on a pedestal, elevating her so high that she was removed from actual power. The Virgin versus the Mother. The 8-pointed star of Venus, a goddess of raw sex, war, and fertility, was cleaned up. In the Middle Ages, this star became the symbol of the Virgin Mary. Her womb power was still acknowledged, but now under the authority of the Father God. She became a vessel rather than the source. Going back to the Star of David, where the upward point equated with good light and progress, whereas the downward point equated with darkness, sin, and regression. By defining the feminine as a downward force, it became philosophically necessary for the upward male force to rule over the world to keep balance. This is where the imbalance began. The patriarchy couldn't fully delete the feminine because life can't exist without the womb. Instead, they placed her underneath as a foundation, which acknowledged she supports the structure, but will never be one at the top. So why does the patriarchy participate in child sacrifice? Now, look, I know this part of the conversation is going to be heavy. We don't want to talk about it, but we need to figure out where and when and why it happened in order to understand where we are today. I know it sounds counterintuitive also from a system that's obsessed with lineage to kill its offspring. The act was often calculated more to break the natural order and replace it with a legal or spirit order controlled by men. In the matriarchal or nature-based system, the strongest bond in existence is between the mother and child. This is a horizontal bond of blood and biology. The intent of demanding the sacrifice of a child, the sky god, or the state system forced the father to choose the law over nature. The wound is a psychological severing. If a man could sacrifice his child to a male deity like Moloch or Cronus, he is proving that his loyalty to the patriarchal hierarchy is stronger than his connection to the feminine womb. By claiming the right to sacrifice the child, the patriarchy asserted that the child was actually the property of the father or the state. It was framed as a holy debt. By returning the child to the fire or the god, the patriarchs were essentially saying, "We own the source of life now. The womb is just a vessel. The life belongs to the sun, king, or god." Let that sink in. Because the feminine represents the slow, natural cycle of growth, the logic behind the sacrifice was seen as a way to shortcut nature. Instead of waiting for Earth to provide the harvest through natural cycles, the sacrifice is a transaction. And because the feminine is the guardian of life and nurturing, child sacrifice is the ultimate anti-mother act. It creates a trauma bond to the patriarchal system. Once the community has participated in something so horrific, they are bound to the new order because they can never return to the innocence of the old one. The myth of Cronus, which is placed in Saturn, right? We have Saturn is going to move out of Pisces, the illusion, and will be moving into Aries. We're all waking up, okay? So this myth is Cronus eating his children. It's a perfect illustration of this. Patriarchal systems often have a king of the hill mentality. The greatest threat to the patriarchy is the next generation. The current power structure attempts to stop time and prevent the natural cycle of the son replacing the father or the return of the mother. The psychological aftermath throughout history left a deep wound in the collective psyche. It redefined the mother and someone who must fear the father's law, the sky god. By removing the sacredness of the mother-child bond and replacing it with the duty to the god king, the patriarchy ensured that the feminine would always be underneath the heavy weight of the state's demand. Now, I know this all seems unreal. And with the Epstein files being released, this is all happening in this time frame. And if it's not, and I'm just having a nightmare, I mean, somebody please just pinch me and wake me up out of it, okay? So let's just talk about the transformation from the healer to the witch. This is all part of this patriarchal ploy, okay? I want you to fit the pieces together. The transformation from the healer midwife into the witch is one of the most successful branding shifts that the patriarchy ever executed. It was a strategic move to dismantle the grassroots power of the feminine and replace it with a centralized male-dominated institutions like the church, the state, and eventually the medical establishment. By changing the healer into a witch, the system didn't just change her name, they changed her social status from the source of life to the source of evil. The healer, the wise woman, held the keys to the kingdom because she understood the orb, the circle biology, and the natural world. She knew how to aid birth, but she also knew how to prevent it and end it. That was a problem for the patriarchy. If women could control their own fertility, the hierarchical system couldn't function. Men couldn't be certain of ownership over the next generation if women held secret knowledge of herbs and cycles. The female healer operated through synthesis of earth herbs, moon timing, and body touch. This was the orb in action. The witch label was used to centralize power. The church and early medical schools, which were male only, had to discredit the healer. They labeled her knowledge demonic and superstitious. If she healed someone, it was because she made a pact with the devil. This effectively moved her position of community leader to criminal. One of the most common accusations, and this is even wild when I was reading it, is that during the witch trials, was that the witches stole unbaptized babies to use in rituals or to make flying ointment. The patriarchy framed the midwife as a baby killer and successfully drove a wedge between the mothers and their healers. This forced women to turn away from each other and look up to male priests and male doctors for safety. Childbirth was moved from the circle of women in a home to the hospital hierarchy, where the woman was placed underneath the doctor, often literally lying flat on her back, a position that favors the doctor's view, not the mother's anatomy. Women were taught to fear their own bodies and their own wise women. Here is where menopause, perimenopause comes into all of this. Because remember, I was going through it. I was turning 50 and now I'm 61. And so this is where everything starts to come together for me and why I've been on this pilgrimage and why the wise woman and why this is important to saving the children. Because remember, the imbalance, it's been broken. And we are flipping, right? The poles are flipping right now. They knew that this time was coming. So everything that is happening right now is trying to prevent the cycle, and they can't because it is the Great Mother. But what needs to happen is women need to wake up from the illusion in order to take back their sovereignty so that we can create the balance again. Because the reason why the world is the way it is because everybody is tapped into the patriarchal system. And because we're raising children in the patriarchal system, which is creating exactly what they want. Okay. So in the framework of the star versus orb and the suppression of the female, perimenopause and menopause represents the ultimate undisguising of the woman. If the patriarchy views a woman's value primarily as a vessel, then menopause is seen as a decline. But through the lens of the 8-pointed star of Venus, it is actually an initiation into sovereignty. Here is how menopause serves as a reminder of the 8-pointed star. During the childbearing years, the orb energy is focused outward, nurturing others, sustaining the lineage, and maintaining this disguise of the passive mother. As an initiation in perimenopause, menopause, the biological reset forces the energy back inward. The blood is no longer shed for the potential of another. It is retained for the self. And the 8-pointed star moves you from the 5-pointed star, the physical body fertility, to the 8-pointed star. So remember, the 5-pointed star that we see everywhere is the symbolism, the unconscious symbolism of removing the feminine. The 8-pointed star is the radiant cosmic wisdom. You are no longer just a point in a family tree. You become the center of your own compass. Venus has 2 phases, the evening star, which is gentle, beautiful, and social, and the morning star, fierce, bright, and the herald of change. Society prefers women in the evening star phase, agreeable and nurturing. The hot flashes that you experience are the surge of power in your perimenopause and menopause. are often the morning star rising within. It is a burning away of the patriarchal's expectations. And get this, the heat is plasma of the star reclaiming its true shape. It's melting the labels of mother, wife, employee to reveal the healer, witch, sovereign underneath. In patriarchal systems, crowning happens at birth and child emerges. In the initiation of menopause, the woman crowns herself. In many ancient traditions, the crone, the crowned one, was the only person in the tribe allowed to speak the unfiltered truth. Menopause is the remembrance that your value was never about the fruit of your womb, but about the wisdom of the womb. Your transition from the source of bodies to the source of culture, law, and healing. So now do you understand the dream that I had about the 8-pointed star hovering over my womb? Everything is connected, and it is about remembering who you are. Perimenopause is a chaotic reshaping. You are moving away from a life of doing to a life of being. The 8-pointed star represents a woman who is fully integrated. She knows the dark, the blood, the earth, the witch, and the light, the spirit, the star, the healer. She is no longer underneath the male hierarchy because she has become her own North Star. So the reason why modern culture makes menopause feel like a medical crisis is that a sovereign woman is a threat to the hierarchy. A woman who no longer cares about pleasing and transitions into her truth-telling cannot be easily controlled. The obsession with anti-aging is a primary tool used to disrupt the 8-pointed star initiation. By framing a spiritual transformation as a medical decline or an aesthetic disaster, the system ensures that women are too busy mourning their youthfulness to claim their sovereign wisdom. The beauty industry, which was historically built and funded by patriarchal corporate structures, sells the maiden archetype as the only valid version of womanhood. The programming that a woman's power lies in her ability to attract the male gaze keeps her in a loop of feeling unworthy. The woman becomes so focused on imperfections of wrinkles, gray hair, and weight gain that they spend years rejecting the initiation of the wise woman by trying to look younger. Hot flashes come from the rage of truth, but the medical establishment often medicates and silences the fire. So with this, I'm not saying that you should suffer because I went through menopause. It's not easy, okay? But I learned how to go within. I learned how to listen to my body, my spirit. I started changing the way I eat. I started resting. I started listening to my spirit. What helped me was that the discomfort motivated me to focus on myself and ask for what I needed and not tolerate the bullshit anymore. I personally believe that if I would have taken the route of hormone replacement, that I would have snuffed the fire out that has brought me to where I am today spiritually. I also understand that every woman has a different threshold to pain, to childbirth, to postpartum. I chose supplements with herbal remedies, but every woman needs to listen to her body instead of taking the advice from other women. And trust, you can still do the inner work without losing your mind. So let's just get back to the children. I believe missing the initiation is perhaps the greatest tragedy of our family lineage, as it leaves our children without the wise, fierce leader of the woman and a strong sense of their roots. Women who don't know their value raise children who don't know their worth. And because of that, they go out in the world and they're seeking validation, whether it is fame, stardom, relationship, partnership, like they just want to be seen. But if you integrate and you do the work, you've heard of quantum entanglement. So I'm telling you this because it's not too late. You have a quantum entanglement with your children, even as adults. And so when you heal, they heal. It's not you healing by yourself. So the most important work that we can do right now is to heal ourselves. This is where the imbalance happened, of the cyclical nature. The patriarchy removed the orb from the cycle of life for a hierarchy phallus sky god who punishes his children for sin and sacrifices the innocent for male dominant power. Which brings me full circle to this whole journey that I have been on. And when I said that I wanted to remind women of their magic, this all came down. It just opened up a channel, and I received all of this information, and I listened to my guides to go down the rabbit hole, to do the research, to find the answers. And I hope that this gives you the answers that you've been looking for. Like always, if you enjoyed this episode and if you learned anything or you have any questions, let's keep the conversation going. I do not want to be on the podium speaking to you. I want to start the conversation and really figure out how the hell we can take back our power, our sovereignty through the inner work, through creating the balance, to understanding that the reason why they've been losing is because so many people have been doing the healing, and the illusion of the patriarchal system is breaking. We cannot connect to it anymore. And this goes for the men and the women, because we are effeminate and masculine, and the women have forgotten their role because of the illusion. I want you to know that it's never too late to heal yourself. Stop carrying around the burden of pain, shame, and guilt because you didn't do things the right way. You were under the illusion of a system that was not for the women or the children. I didn't start this journey until I was in my 50s. I've apologized to all of my kids of being stuck in the matrix of this patriarchal system and thinking that my worth was in partnership and putting men first in the way of them finding my worth. I lost my value, my worth, because when we talk about, in my next video, I will be talking about the 7 gates of Ishtar and how she removed pieces to find herself so that she could come back out from the underworld as the warrior. So it is the Venusian energy who lost herself through the eyes of love and partnership. Because remember, Venus rules the 2nd house of the material world and the 7th house of relationship. And so when you're wounded, you are tapped into this patriarchal system and believing that your worth is tied in money, fame, the material world, what you do in the world, and the relationships that you have. And when you take back your power and understand that you've always been complete and whole, not like the Father God, the sky God wants you to believe. You are one with nature. You are one with the cosmos. You are a star. You're a glowing orb that is connected to the world order of the cycle of life. And we've just forgotten. So like always, if you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. Let's keep the conversation going. And subscribe. And thanks again for all of the new subscribers that I've had. Stay tuned for the next video where we will talk about the descent of Inanna, our goddess Ishtar, so that you can take your power back. And if you want to read this episode, again, you can head over to celiasasser.com where I have the blog post. You can listen to it on a podcast, share it with a woman in your life, a woman that is wondering, how did we get here? What is going on? And how can I feel like I'm doing my part in the process? I don't know if this episode is even going to be seen because I'm sharing a lot here. I hope that it is, the message gets out, because I know that this is truly my purpose of why I'm here, why I've done the work. And again, I will leave some links down below of the things that I created while I was on my journey. And like I said, it doesn't cost you anything to hit subscribe. It helps me move into the algorithm to do more of these videos so that I can show up. And I'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.